Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well. This is a APPI Learn by Doing webinar with our focus on ARV, of course. And APPI is all about educating people about psi and consciousness and working to develop better and better people at ARV so they can become precog professionals, at least some of them. Many of you just love doing the remote viewing and ARVing, and of course that's great. I also always like to share really new things that I'm working on with you, and today we're going to talk about you are a living programmable quantum computer, and that's a good thing. The first time I called somebody a quantum computer many years ago, and it was with Skip Atwater, a woman jumped up and said, "I am not a computer." But I hope to convince you that a quantum computer is quite another matter. So here will be our outline. We will start off with a general tutorial and hints for, I think, mostly newbies, but there are still old bees that can learn, I think, just by really grasping what's going on here. And then we'll do the quantum computer discussion, and then go on to the feedback for what we did about a month or so ago. And then we will do a new month-long prediction and analysis judging. So that is our agenda. Let me mute here. Ooh. Okay, I don't know. It looks like something PA. If you could mute your mic and just turn it on when you want to talk, that would be great. I'm hearing noise from there, and I am not able to mute it. Okay, so let's start. And now, first, let's just talk about what happens in ARV in linear time. And it starts with a remote viewing session. And the remote viewing session has the tasking queue, describe and sketch your feedback target. Very much like all remote viewing, there's a target out there. We'll give it a coordinate that you'll see in a minute, but you're supposed to describe something. And most of the time, but not all the time, there's feedback involved. And all remote viewers prefer that because they would like to see how well they did. And in ARV, there's always a feedback target. So, and there's just one and only one target, and you know that you will see it sometime in the future. Okay, so that's how things start in linear time. Now let's jump forward to the feedback session, which is when you see your feedback target. So this is your tasking. Here you get the truth point. Here you get to see the actual target. This is really an extraordinarily important session. This is where learning goes on. This is where you have the truth. You have your transcript with you that you did here, and you can compare them, and you can see how well you did. So often it's obvious that you got a hit because so much is correct, and you feel really, really good. Hey, sometimes we get misses or passes, and deal with it, and always there's something to learn with every session. Now, what about the analysis judging, which is the third? It happens second in linear time, and it happens in between here. these two, and it is what permits us to make investment decisions. The analysis of this transcript in association with two possible targets. Every time I do this, I always say it a little differently, but I certainly hope you get it, and if not, you'll be able to ask questions. There are two possible targets because for an investment decision, there are two possible choices, one for up and one for down. And ARV is designed to be able to make that prediction for up or down. Now, in financial markets, we define up or down rather carefully. What we do is we start out when the market opens with a buy or sell, and then we put in stops and limits, a certain amount above and below that, and whichever one gets hit first, that tells us whether it's up or down. So is the first move, price move up and hits our limit, or down and hit our stop, or vice versa. So that's what we mean by up or down. Now, notice it's binary. There are two possible choices, and so there are two possible targets. Guess what? One target is associated with up. The other target is associated with down. Now, these associations are, in our online systems, are done by the computer in a random fashion. We have 800 prepared possible target sets, and it chooses one, and after it chooses one, it then randomly associates one with up and one with down. But once that association is made, and this is critical to understand, that is rigid. The target, possible target associated with up, whatever it is, that might be a dolphin swimming in the ocean, and the other might be, the Eiffel Tower. But what is key is the actual target, always shown during the feedback session, will always be the actual up or down. So if the market moves up, what will be shown here will be, in this example I gave, the dolphin. If the market goes down, it will be the Eiffel Tower. See, and knowing that as the analyst judge, if the viewer gives me a really good description, which says things like water, animal-like, something like the dolphin, I have every reason to believe that it's going to be an up move because that information comes from the feedback. On the other hand, if it's talking about a structure and it's tall and it's metal, looks triangular, touristy, then I would judge this, and we'll talk about the details of that later, I would judge this as a down. So that's basically ARV. The key is that we have two possible targets. One's associated with up, one's associated with down. The judging is done here. And after the judging, but before the investment event starts, we get to make a trade. So the investment event is in here and the outcome, and then we do feedback. So this is how ARV works. Now I want to give you another perspective. The other was linear in time, but in fact, in this world of precognition, I believe precognition, a really good way of looking at this is precognition begins with your feedback session. That's where you have the truth. And this is purposeful. Precognition occurs at other times, but we're doing it on purpose. And the feedback session, when you have the truth point right here, begins with the feedback session. Sure, earlier, this is your remote viewing with your standard cue, describe and sketch your, we use 6-digit numbers, feedback target. But the information that you get here through your subconscious, that's the word I typically use, but same as the higher self, it could be a guide, it could be however you think of a larger part of you, larger than your day-to-day ego, which doesn't get this at all. You need it to put stuff on your transcript, but you want to minimize its participation in this. It's your subconscious, your higher self that gets the information from here. All you have to do is see some of the amazing sessions that have been done by our people and the pros to know that the feedback is an important part of this, and it actually begins here with the feedback session. Now, what is our feedback target? What we use are what we call photo sites. Now, this is a particular site at a particular time that a photo was taken. So there is a photo, and you, in fact, will be shown a photo, but consciousness is expected to gather information from the photo. It can get color, shapes, things like that. And some people do this naturally. Other people don't want to do it. They want to stay with the photo. The viewer's in charge. But I believe consciousness moves to the site when the photo is taken and describes then or sketch what can be readily verified or inferred from the photo. You see, that includes things like sounds and smells and tastes, which obviously you don't get directly from the photo, but when you see some photos that have lots of sounds, you sort of automatically know they're there, but that's like your consciousness going there. We're particularly interested in first impression gestalts. When you first flash on the target, you first look at it, they're just some big picture things you see. We call those first impression gestalts. And those tend to come up early, not always, but they do tend to come up early in many viewers. And then you get all the things which your normal nervous system can pick up. The subconscious is communicating with your conscious mind using your nervous system, right? It comes up into your consciousness. So you can get anything that you can normally think about or feel. You get visual, sound, smells, tastes, tactile sensations, emotions, ideas, and they come up and they have a special feeling when they come up from the subconscious versus coming from the ego intellect. And that's one of the really important things which you learn and which has many applications outside of ARV. So the target is this feedback photo site. I hope you get that the idea of it is really easy. Once you accept the precognition exists, then you're just sharing information between the remote viewing and the feedback session. One of the things which everybody agrees on is practice, practice, practice is really important, like a doctor or a shaman. So there are 3 sessions: the remote viewing, the analysis judging, the feedback. In many ways, the analysis judging, we're going to spend a fair amount of time on that, is in some ways the most complicated. But what I want to show you now is give you a sense of the online approach, which is really very straightforward. Once you get into one of our groups, and today you are in the webinar workshop group, but we have sports groups and we have financial groups, and I hope you're already in some of those. If you're not, email me and I'll get you in one. Julie Beeman is the one who takes care of that, and she'll be happy to put you in one or more groups. Now, this is an example of the tasking, and this was the tasking which was a month ago. Notice the event here is will SPY, that's a Standard & Poor's 500, basically divided by 10. It's like a stock that people make sure it's very close to the Standard & Poor's 500 moment to moment. And you can see the dates, and it ended July 2nd. And so it was for about a month. And the transcripts were due on the 5th when this was done. And all you would do once you got this in your email is you simply click on this. And when you click on this, it will ask for your email address. And then up will come your coordinate. I blanked it out here, but it'll be right there. And it'll be right there. So that's how simple it is to get your coordinate for describe and sketch your feedback target. So there's the cue again. And you know, I don't usually emphasize this, but I want to now, and maybe I should emphasize it more. Notice what I wrote here. Start your RV session when you feel good about doing the session. You know, that word good, you know what that means. Yeah, you're feeling good. You don't have all kinds of other crap going on in your life that you can't get rid of. You're ready to do a session and give that your total attention and set up your intention and expectation, which we'll talk about a little later, as part of getting to the feedback target. Okay, but you can see how easy it is to get there. Then after you do your remote viewing session, because now you have your coordinate, so the next thing to do is to go to the judging. Now, once you get and do your RV session, you do have to bring it into your computer and upload it to our server. So we have a copy of it. But not only that, now that we know we have your transcript, then you click submit, and it's only then that the random pair of possible targets is chosen. So this is pure precognition. You know, not that anybody wants to cheat, but the targets, the possible targets aren't even chosen until after you do your session. So the only way to get the information is by going to your feedback target. But then judging comes in, and we do have two kinds of judging. Most people are still doing self-judging. A lot of people are doing independent judging, and so they would simply send off their transcript to another person, and that person would log in as you. You know, you got your coordinate. They log in separately, but when they log in with your email, everything is key to your email. They will get the same coordinate. You sent them their transcript, so they now can do the judging. And you see two pictures. Actually, the way you see it, you see what we call photo site A comes up first, full size. Below that is photo site B. And then you see two of them together at the same size. A lot of people like to judge photo site A before they look at photo site B, and then they wipe their mind clear of photo site A and go to photo site B. So that's one way judges do it. Other people like to look at both of these and go through the transcript. Remember, the judge now has a transcript. And then right here is where, using this drop-down menu, you put in a 0 to 7 Targ scale. But first, I want to give you sort of a description of what analysis judging is not to, I think, put this in its appropriate context. So here's a skeptic talking to our remote viewer, and he says, "I alone know the contents of this envelope." And our remote viewer gets quiet, gets in touch with its subconscious, and says, It's a charcoal drawing of a woodchuck eating a small orange. Nice try, you little fraud, but that's a long way from an ink drawing of a beaver eating a tangerine. And I hope you get the point, which is this is in terms of ARV and even remote viewing, you know, really right on. The subconscious uses metaphors, gets close to, sometimes it's right on, but certainly a tangerine and a small orange, you understand. A woodchuck versus a beaver, and a charcoal drawing versus an ink drawing, all would be considered good matches in ARV. So that's where just a bit of maybe intuition comes in when you're doing the judging. But as you will see, you do have to make those judgments, and you don't want to push it too far. Okay, these are very close, but there's some that are on the margin, and that's why it's truly is judging. Now, here's an example of how we want you to do the judging at what I would say is the minimal level. And later I'm going to show you a more advanced level that Joe McMonagle suggested. So the transcript, of course, are the words here, but notice in mostly blue, which he gave a ranking of 5, and I'm about to show you the Targ scale ranking from 0 to 7. Notice all the B's. She went through what we call each element of the transcript and marked it with either a big B, which says that was a good match, like outdoors. Here was a little b, which was dirt. Yeah, you know, there's some dirt there, but it's not a major part here. And she did that with these other things, every single element. Some elements have nothing. Okay, didn't match either one. Here's something rounded. She gave that a little a. I don't even know if she has, yeah, here's a big A, solitude. So whatever the other picture was, this was the photo site B, but she got a match for both. And most people do like to start out with ideograms. Usually they put it up here, but this is what's called, this is like an ideogram. And she, you know, marked all those. She does that there and likes to put her words here. Everybody builds up their own style. But notice she could then count up the A's, and little A's count as a half. Little B's, of course, count as a half towards the B side. Now, I like to add this thing I said about gestalts. I might even give those 2 points. Like water is like a right-on gestalt here. I might circle that and actually give that 2 points in counting, which would have made the B count here even a bit higher. White, you know, that's sort of a major gestalt here. When you first look at that, that's what you would notice. Okay, but you can see the idea here, and she counts them up, and then she goes to this Targ confidence ranking system, which after you do this a few times, you sort of get a good sense of, but it is important to get a proper and good sense of, because this is what you are saying to the people who are making the investment. If it's a confidence ranking, a CR of 0, 1, or 2, that goes for no correspondence. I mean, you just got nothing which matched it when you went element by element. Turns out that's rather difficult. 1 is little correspondence. 2, some correct elements, but not sufficient to suggest results beyond chance expectations. Now, you'll get a sense of what chance is, but very roughly, if you got below half, you know, in the example we had there, the number of B's was well above half, the number of A's was below half. of the total, you know, you're probably in the random regime. Now, what's 3? 3 is a mixture of correct and incorrect elements, but enough of the former, the correct elements, to indicate that the viewer has made contact with the target. So here we're right at, you know, half of the elements on the page match one side or the other, and that would be a 3, right on the border. Now remember, this is Russell Targ trying to put words to how to rank these. 4 goes for good correspondence with several matchable elements intermixed with some incorrect information. So now some incorrect information implies you got more correct information than incorrect information. And, but, you know, a lot of people would get hung up between 3 and 4. How good is it? We use 3.5 we use the word wagerable, but you'd be willing to invest or wager a few bucks at 3.5. 3 would actually be a pass. 3 and below is a pass. 3.5 and above is wagerable. Okay, somebody is making a lot of noise. Let me see if it was Raymond. Yeah, okay. Now, so 3.5 is wagerable. 4 is you're happy. 4 is a very good transcript. You got several matchable elements intermixed with some incorrect elements, but again, you'd have a fair amount matching. Now, what's a 5? Good correspondence with unambiguous, unique matchable elements, but some incorrect information. So that's the kind of key. He's gone up a level where he's saying unambiguous, unique, matchable elements, something that's just right on. And that's a 5. Okay. Kristen, I'm going to mute you. Okay. That's a 5. Now, what are 6s and 7s? A 6 brings in something which is related to what we call analytical overlay. Information that comes from your ego and intellect is usually, but not always, of secondary importance. And as I indicated, learning how to identify the information that comes from the subconscious, that's usually a surprise or an image, and usually partial images, rarely full images, a partial image that'll come out of nowhere. Images are really good because they don't seem to come from the analytical part, you know, less driven by that. But every now and you write that down on the right side of the paper, but what happens sometimes is this analytical information will actually result in naming the function of the target. You know, a fire hose might come up, or something like that. And so that gets you up to where the analytical, but there might still be relatively little incorrect information. And notice with the 5, you still have some incorrect information, but as you go up, less and less incorrect information. And then a 7 is like spot on, naming the target, you say Eiffel Tower, and essentially no incorrect information. You know, 95 of the elements are right on, 95% of the elements are right on. Okay, so do you have any questions about that? Do you have any questions about, you know, judging in particular or anything else? Notice here, we do have AOLs even here, usually put on the right, but in this case, our AOLs were right on. You know, she sensed when she said dirt and outdoors that there were hills and mountains, a sky outdoor, but that came from her intellect. But in this case, they were right on. Often they're not. And when judging, I don't even count AOLs that are not marked as anything. I don't count them in the total element count here. Notice here her total element count was 34. So here she was well over half of the 34. Here she was well under. And that's why she gave that a 2 for the A and a 5 for the B. Okay, questions, comments? How many sessions can one run per day? Okay, that's in principle, you need to be a full member to be in more than one group, but each group can only do one session per day. But if you're in multiple groups, you could get up to 2 or 3. I really don't recommend doing more than 2, you know, maybe 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. But one good session a day is all it really takes. The key is to not rush it, to bring it into your lifestyle. Newbies here, whatever your lifestyle is now, to do this, you're going to have to replace something else you're doing with about, you know, an hour or so of time, you know, between the feedback judging and then the remote viewing session at the beginning. The whole thing might take an hour, hour and a half most, depending on how you do it. It's remarkable how a lot of people spend little time doing the remote viewing except for the cool down, because it sort of all blurts up. The information comes up quickly. But the analysis section takes time. Oop, who's that? The analysis session takes time. And then the feedback session, you just want to take time. If it's a hit, you want to really enjoy it and get into it. And if it's a miss, you want to learn something from it and get into the feedback. So, okay, any other questions, comments? Using the chat is fine, or turning on your mic is fine. Either way. Okay. So, looks like we're ready to move forward. And you and me and every, I would say maybe everything, but certainly every living sentient being is a self-programmable quantum computer. And that really is a good thing. In fact, at the very top, let me point out to you that regular computers could never do precognition. Precognition is what is called a non-local function. It uses the non-locality feature, I believe, of quantum mechanics. Non-locality is one of the key features of quantum mechanics. Most of you have heard of all the experiments that allow things to communicate faster than the speed of light, basically instantaneously, as far as we can tell, from different parts of the universe. And that can only happen if you're in the quantum world. Now, the subconscious mind is key to all this. I think you recognize that most people are raised to believe that their normal ego self, the intellectual self, the right, well, actually the left brain, as they would say, which is the ego intellect part, it just doesn't even get things like precognition or other psi phenomenon. Psychokinesis, how can you move objects? That's impossible. Okay. But the subconscious mind knows this is possible because, in fact, it's connected with something very, very deep. And that's where the precognition comes from. And I love this, that I just found this, and it's from the Mind's Journal editorial. Notice that. The Age of Enlightenment. And they put out this statement, and I haven't the slightest idea how they got it, but I love it. Your subconscious mind is 30,000 times more powerful than your conscious mind. Okay, 30,000 times, right? Well, I'll give you my opinion. My opinion is that's a gross underestimate. I believe your subconscious mind is connected to something that's essentially, by any of our terms, infinite. And your subconscious mind has access to that. And that's what I want you to go away with. So let's talk a little bit more about the subconscious mind. Here's a Scientific American, a very well-respected, peer-reviewed journal that tries to put things into normal English, but you still need to know a bit of science to get into it, but it's not super highly technical. But it's taken all the technical words and ideas, and it came out with a journal which on its cover said, our unconscious mind, it exerts a profound influence shaping decisions and molding. I wouldn't even allow the un there, because un means not, and there is no such thing as not consciousness, in my opinion. So our subconscious mind, let's talk about that. And this iceberg metaphor is a good metaphor for this. So the conscious mind is like the top of the iceberg, okay? That's what we experience. But please note, that experience is only in the now. You have memories of the past, but when you do that memory, you're bringing it into the now. It is a memory experienced in the now. Well, that's just what precognition is. It's just future memory. Really. Precognition is very much like past memory, except it's memory of the future, because your future feedback, for example. So the conscious mind is the very top, and it really is in the now. That's what consciousness is. Now, between those is this ego, intellect, conscious mind. It's part of your consciousness. It, in fact, is around in the now moment, but it has access to things like memory. It probably could have access to precognition as well if it believed in it strong enough. But generally, the ego intellect just gets the surface kind of stuff and a little bit below that. So that's what I would call the ego intellect. Now, what about the subconscious, which I like to call the submerged consciousness, submerged conscious mind? Goes as deep as there is to go. You are connected as deeper that is to go. And I am going to give you one way of looking at that. It's a model that is called the UCC model, which includes everything past, present, and future. And that stands for the universe of collective consciousness. Others have called it other words. Ingo Swann, I think, was referring to that probably as the matrix. So I will be talking about that, but it's just a different way of looking at this, but it's a way which I think is very valuable. Okay, so another part of this, okay, Mario, let me turn off your mic. I can't turn you off either. You guys must be on the phone or something. But if you can turn off your own mic, that would be good, because there's noise coming through from time to time. Now, there's something, we all know we have different personalities. We have personalities You know, with our parents, personalities with our kids, different personality at work, um, a different personality when you're remote viewing, a different personality when maybe you're dealing with a major problem. You may get into a different mode. A different personality when you're with a bunch of friends at some sort of event, a sporting event or birthday party. You just act a little bit differently. And a lot of these, of course, overlap. But I believe it makes sense to develop an I-Psi personality. This is the personality and the mode you want to be in when you do your psychic stuff. And consciously and purposefully take full responsibility for creating it and using your entanglement energy. Now I want to begin to tell you how powerful you are and what this entanglement energy is all about. So I mentioned the UCC model, the universe of collective consciousness. So let's start it out by saying that's the blue, and it contains everything consciousness touches, past, present, future, ideas, anything which consciousness has experienced is in there. I mean, as broad as you could imagine it. And this isn't just your consciousness. This is consciousness of any sentient being on Earth, outside of Earth, on other planets. Hey, if there's sentient beings in other dimensions, it's in here. So this is everything consciousness touches in the broadest possible sense. Now, notice you have to ignore the outer boundary, which I've drawn here, because there is no outside the UCC. If you were to imagine, oh yeah, but that's outside the UCC, as soon as you've imagined it, this new thing which you hadn't thought of before, you have it in the UCC, and probably somebody else thought about it before anyway, but it's in the UCC at the very moment it touched your consciousness. So this is a circle without a boundary. It's sort of interesting. The only other sort of construct that I can think of that's like that is the physical universe. The physical universe has no boundary. You can't come to an end and reach a wall. Now, the UCC itself is non-physical. It contains the ideas of the screen I'm looking at or the chair I'm sitting on. It is all ideas. Because think about what your consciousness really is experiencing. You're not experiencing the chair directly. You're experiencing through your nervous system the way it feels on your butt if you're sitting down, or if you look at it, what it looks like. It's really that level of consciousness that's down in the UCC. It's the level of what I call ideas or the direct experience of now moments. So it's the conscious now moments, but it's not physical. Now, your conscious moments, of course, are experienced in the brain, and you can see what's going on in there, but the experience itself is different than that. And science has never been able to explain those two, from what goes on in the brain to the actual experience with the conscious now mind. So this no boundary really implies no separations anywhere. There's no boundary anywhere in the UCC. This is the ultimate definition of oneness, harmony, and I would say spirituality down there. However, what do? We, being in the physical world, live our lives by bringing out individual things. The chair I'm sitting on is certainly an experience of an individual thing to me. But notice, since they can't ever be completely separated, because what does completely separated mean? Completely separated means it's got a boundary, and there can't be any boundaries. So it must have what I call a fuzzy boundary. Now, that means uncertainty is introduced, if this boundary is fuzzy in some way, it's not well defined, um, um, uncertainty is introduced. You know, this chair, even in its physical space, you get finer and finer and finer, and you get little filaments, and do you want to count those filaments or not? But even more directly, there's radiation coming from it, where went who knows where. Uh, it's the definition of this chair has uncertainty associated with it. Now, here's, for our purposes, a more important thing to really get, grok, and that's this concept of entanglement energy, EE. Entanglement energy is introduced to maintain the illusion of separateness. I mean, I certainly feel this chair is a separate thing, and it goes through time. Guess what? Time is a thing within the fuzzy boundary as well. And these are all interacting to give me an illusion of separateness, that this chair smoothly moves through this thing we call time. And my conscious experience of it, you know, is pretty constant, but not exactly really. Okay. Now, entanglement energy maintains the illusion of separateness, but it does this by maintaining a communication channel with the UCC. Since it's not separate, the raw information, what's fundamental, is in the UCC. So what I'm experiencing right now is through this communication channel between the UCC, my conscious mind, and the intermediary is my subconscious mind, higher self. Something else is connecting me with this UCC. Now, this idea of consciousness is fundamental, and I don't think I put a slide of that in here, but I just want to tell you that that's a phrase which the people who invented quantum mechanics used. They were forced to use it because things like electrons and stuff like that they were measuring did not come into existence until they finished their measurement. Otherwise, it was all probabilities. And they were the ones who came up with consciousness as fundamental, but that has led, you know, over quite a few years actually, to this formulation of the UCC. Now, what is energy? Energy is the capacity for doing work. And we usually think of it as physical work, right? I can throw a ball, and in my arm, I've got energy, and I throw it, and the ball goes. There's potential energy, enormous amounts, which are released in snow slides, say. But guess what? When you're working with ideas and you're bringing new ideas together, that's a kind of work as well. And that work starts out in the UCC. Now, I want to bring in another important concept, since we're really down now in the quantum world, and I want you to get a really good sense of that. Consciousness is fundamental came from what's called the measurement problem, where they try to figure out where exactly is this electron, and all they could do is say, well, it's got a probability of being here, 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 and there are various probabilities, but until it was actually measured and brought up into the physical world, it was simply probabilities. That's what led them to consciousness as fundamental. Now, one step further, and this is relatively recent work by Hal Puthoff, and as you know, Hal was the head of the Stanford Research Institute remote viewing work at SRI until he left. And one of the things he worked on is zero-point fluctuation energy. Now, zero-point fluctuation is also sometimes called vacuum energy, because before quantum mechanics, we all thought that we could create a vacuum and it would have zero energy associated with it. If you went out between two galaxies, we felt there was nothing. Turns out quantum mechanics says, no, that is wrong, and wrong big time, because at the very, very small level, no matter where you go, there are these fluctuations which have enormous energy associated with it. But every point does in the universe. And so it's almost like being at the bottom of a deep ocean where the pressures are enormous. You know, if you went down there suddenly, you'd be crushed. And yet the little fish that were born down there, and they can swim and live very nice lives because they live on changes in pressure. What we're living on is changes in energy, like entanglement energy. And I want to read to you a quote from Hal Puthoff. Throughout mankind's cultural history, there has existed the metaphysical concept that man and cosmos are interconnected by a ubiquitous, all-pervasive sea of energy that undergirds and is manifest in all phenomena. This pre-scientific concept of a cosmic energy goes by many names in many traditions, such as chi, ki. I wonder if those two are pronounced the same. Prana, mana, baraka, elan vital, and so forth. And this comes from something you can find on the internet, searching for the universal matrix in metaphysics. So 0-point energy is in the UCC. It's a thing. It is in the physical world. And I want to talk a little bit more about that, but I want you to make sure that you really get this. It was first discovered, and all the mathematics of it comes at the quantum level. I don't care where you go, out in the middle of space where you think there's a vacuum, or how about in your very body? You go into one cell. You get smaller and smaller and smaller. Oh, you get down to your genes. You get smaller and smaller, part of your genes. You get smaller and smaller and smaller. Now you're down to where all you have are atoms. You get smaller and smaller and smaller. And now you're actually in pieces of the atoms. You get smaller and smaller and smaller. And you get down to there's actually the smallest length that you could actually get in physical space. It's called like the Planck length. You get down there, and guess what? There are electrons and anti-electrons, protons, anti-protons, all kinds of stuff coming out of what appears to be nowhere, combining, and there's a huge amount of energy at every one of those points. What's called energy densities are the same as in a nuclear weapon, which is interesting because you're getting source energy from the ZPE field. But it's down there now, undergirding you. So I say, could it be entanglement energy is basically the same as chi, ki, kai? And of course, I think the answer is yes. But I mean, how do I prove that? But I believe that is the direct connection with the entanglement energy, which comes from the UCC, and this sense that all these different cultures have, that there's this deep energy that can be used. Now, let me show you where physics is. This is a representation of the ZPE field. This times 10 to the 35 means we're looking at stuff which is 10 to the minus 35 meters big, which is very small, okay? Infinitesimally small. But notice right here, what they put is, this comes from one of the labs, I think it was Sandia, from nothing. In other words, the ZPE field from nothing and disappear back into nothingness. It appears to come from no place. Well, now you can see where I am leading all of this. Perhaps it comes from a non-physical reality Might be outside of space and time. You might want to say other dimensions. Who knows what words you might want to use, but it's non-physical. And I'm using the UCC as the place that comes from. So the model is, here's our physical world. The ZPE, the zero-point energy field, is what connects the physical to the non-physical. Now, let me, and I believe now you will actually begin to actually accept this. And I think if you think a little bit like this, it could become very valuable for you. You are an advanced, living, consciously aware quantum computer. This permits this non-locality. This permits psychokinesis. This permits, I believe, mediums talking in quotes to the dead, getting information from the dead, at least is the way I look at it, from what are considered dead people, no longer in the physical world. All of this can happen because you are a quantum computer. Now, there's Hameroff and Penrose are the two that came up with an actual model where quantum vibrations and microtubules, and I'll tell you what those are in a moment, corroborates theories of consciousness. But this is so important, I'm going to read this to you. A review and update of a controversial 20-year-old theory of consciousness published in the Physics of Life claims that consciousness derives from deeper level, finer scale activities inside brain neurons. So we're talking about stuff inside your neurons, smaller than your neurons, and your nerve cells are so small. The recent discovery of quantum vibrations and microtubules inside brain neurons corroborates this theory, according to Hameroff and Penrose. They suggest that EEG rhythms, brainwaves, also derive from deeper level microtubule vibrations, and that from a practical standpoint, treating brain microtubule vibrations could benefit a host of mental, neurological, and cognitive conditions. So from their perspective, and Hameroff is a anesthesiologist, so he's always wondered where people go when they go under, but they're suggesting this for medical reasons, but I want to now connect it up with ARV. You are a living quantum computer. That's a good thing. Now, if you're a computer, who do you think is involved in programming you? Well, it's you. Okay, and we'll talk more about that. So here's a typical nerve cell, schematic, of course. Here's the nucleus with the DNA in the middle of the cell, but it's pretty complicated. All these things are the microtubules inside of it. Here's a micrograph of them, and you can see how complicated they are. But even now, and Hameroff has made some videos where he shows these in 3Ds and how they're all connected. It looks like a network. I mean, it even looks like a computer network inside one of your neurons. Now, you have 100 billion neurons. You have roughly 100 trillion microtubules, give or take. Okay? We're talking very, 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 essentially infinite in terms of our lives. But still finite, but very, very large number of microtubules. And yet, not only in our neurons, I'm trying to make their model more credible. If you look at Paramecium, they have these things called cilia. This is the way they interact with the outside world, okay? Each one of those cilia, if you take a cross cut of that, has like 20 microtubules here. So they're talking about really a small finite number of them, and yet they're obviously alive, they learn, They can avoid places where there are electric shocks. They can go to light. They learn. And it's these microtubules that seem to be really important in that model. But Bruce Lipton, who a lot of you, I think, heard of, the book Biology of Belief, Unleashing the Power of Consciousness, Matter and Miracles. And miracles, of course, is psi. That's what he means by miracles. It's your subconscious, not your genes. So, and here he means it's not your genetic makeup. There's more, and it's the subconscious. Now, the basic of his model is, well, studies on cloned human cells led me to the awareness that cells' membranes, the membrane of a cell, so you know how small a cell is, the membrane is even smaller. And that's the first biological organelle, and I had to look that up, but that has anything to do with a cell. Okay, so this is a cell membrane to appear in evolution. So apparently the cell membranes formed and the cells fit inside. I don't know exactly, but what I do know that, yes, this is common to every living organism, and they are so thin that they can only be observed using the electron microscope. Again, I believe this would put them within the quantum mechanical realm. So your 30 trillion or so cells is what can be part of a living quantum computer. Now, do I know if it's mostly microtubules? Is it mostly cell membranes? I do not know that. But I do know that the opportunity up in the level of trillions of cells can react like a quantum computer. So now let's switch to quantum computers a little bit. And remember, we've come from trillions down to where right now our best scientists are so excited that they've got over 5,000 what are called qubits. Qubits are things which are acting in the quantum mechanical world. And they are basically, can be viewed as being probabilities between 0 and 1, have the possibility of being anything between 0 and 1, as opposed to a normal linear computer, which could only be 0 or 1. That's the big leap in quantum mechanics, as I've discussed. Before it gets into the physical world, it's all about probabilities. And that's what people have put together in terms of qubits. And here we are so excited that they got up to 5,000. Here's a graph of the number of computer qubits. And here we are, you know, roughly 5,000. And I might have to add another point here. And a company out there, and they market this. People are using these quantum computers now. Now, if I take this curve, and it seems to be well known in our world with technology that things grow in this fashion. This is a logarithmic scale. This is linear. So this is a semi-log scale is what this is called. A factor of 10 increase, if this were to increase at this rate, a factor of 10 increase in the number of qubits would be about 7 years. So to get to 1 million qubits would take about 21 years, and 1 billion qubits would take 42 years, and 1 trillion qubits, so we're getting at least into the trillions, will take 63 years. Well, you know what? 63 years is not very much. And who knows what you could do with 1 million qubits in 21 years. So we're talking about major advances in quantum computers on a very short time scale. And at one level, people are very, very worried about this because already they're worried about artificial intelligence with linear computers. but it's very clear with quantum computers, they're going to be able to do much, much, much more. They talk about things which can, encryption schemes which can't be broken and stuff like that. So this is very important stuff, and it's happening. Universities are competing to see who can do better at this, etc. But what I want you to get, and get as deep as you possibly can, is that you already have trillions of qubits available to you. Trillions. Now, here's a graph which is calculations from machines going way back to 1910. Here's a compact machine, UNIVAC. I was working with some of these machines back here. Some of the older folks, really older folks, might go back here. But these are physical computers, and this is calculations per second per $1,000. Notice up here, this curve is agreeing with what I told you before. They have optical quantum DNA computing machines, which are going to come into play here. We're already at the level of a mouse brain. In fact, I ought to see if I can have anybody estimate how many qubits they think a mouse brain has. But it might be 1 million. I don't know what a mouse brain has in terms of qubits, but this is a different measure. This is the calculational speed. But notice the human brain is up here. And notice the word DNA. We, human beings, are experimenting with DNA computing. It's a branch of computing which uses DNA, biochemistry, and molecular biology, all the kinds of things at the very, very quantum-like level, instead of traditional silicon-based technologies. And research and technology in this area concerns theory, experiments, and applications of DNA computing. Now, Mother Nature, for whatever reason, seems to want to advance to get more and more complex, to permit more and more capabilities. That's sort of a good thing, right? Well, here you are. You've got abilities which are non-local. You can do precognition. We know that, or you wouldn't be here, which makes you non-local, which brings in the whole quantum world. To think of yourself as a quantum computer really is a good thing. You are, at least on planet Earth, the most complex quantum computer around. And this is what allows you to have this intuition, to be non-local, to get into it. Where does intuition come from? Well, somehow from the UCC, right? By definition, it's not analytical. The intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. So don't forget that you are a non-local quantum computer. You're able to create precognition and retrocausality. You do it when you're a remote viewer picking up information from the future. We call that precognition because you're in advance, you're pre-cogging what's going to come in the future. But when you're here, which is a later time in linear time, what are you doing? You are retro-causing information to go into your consciousness, which you put on your transcript. So you are clearly non-local. Another very important thing to recognize is that both of these occur in their own present now moment, but they influence the past and the future. Your RV session, you can say, was influenced from the future. Your feedback was influenced from the past. And as you would imagine, that goes both ways all the time. So recognizing that every now moment can influence the past and the present, and that's the way our universe works, is important. So who you are is really a deep and an important question. And I just want you to know that you're involved in work which can influence not only ARV, you're involved in something so much bigger than this. Once you kind of get this and get that you're in touch with the UCC through your subconscious, the same subconscious you're using here, this can affect health, this can affect wealth. Chris, let me see if I can turn you off. Yeah. This can affect health, wealth, and wisdom, right? Because all of those, and I've given other webinars on those, will get involved. But it's always done in the now. Notice when you're working to change any of these things, you're working on reprogramming yourself. And that can only be done in the now. Anything is only done in the now. Everything else are memories of the past or the future. We don't usually think that way, yet once I point it out to you, I think you will accept it. Okay, so new programming only occurs in the now, and the new programming is taking action, and all action is in the now. And Yogi Berra, I love throwing this in, the future ain't what it used to be. He has these great sayings. And that is certainly true. The future is connected to the past. Lots of those things go on. I want to point out to you that this idea, this expectation energy and expectation intention energy can be involved in reprogramming your beliefs in the now moment. Beliefs are so important. And the only thing limiting us in life is our limiting beliefs. I think we all know that that's basically true, what are your limiting beliefs about being at a sustained 75% hit rate, 75% plus or minus? We have these hit rate charts, and we want then, as objectives we're putting out there, people to be at 75%, give or take 5% as measured by their last 25 days. Okay? What do you believe, though? Hey, you might be believing I'm at a 60% hit rate and can't get any better, and I'm happy there. And you know what? If you're happy there, that's fine. But that means you don't want to change. That means you like the inertia of your life, and you don't want to bring in any energy to change it. But if you do, expectation and intention and focus can do it. Other people think, gee, I really have to intellectually understand this. That'll help me improve. Fine, you'll be spending your time doing that, but that's not going to change your basic belief until you get to the point where you're ready to reprogram yourself. I want to give an example of this just to make it clear, and that's because of money. In many ways, and I don't know how many, but I think a fair number of people have deeply ingrained beliefs about money which might be slowing them down. And they probably wouldn't acknowledge it because they've worked it out, but it still may be a factor. For example, money is the root of all evil. We've all heard that. I think some religious traditions would teach that pretty early on. Money is a limited resource. It's selfish to want a lot of money because I'm taking it from somebody else. Look at these three, individually or together. If that's down in you, and that's part of a belief system that's still active down there, you might purposely get misses because You don't want to be selfish. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer because you don't want to become part of that approach. I'm just not good with money. Only corrupt, dishonest, unethical people have lots of money. In our society right now, we're hearing a lot of that. They point to rich people and, they rarely point to the good ones that are giving to lots of charities and stuff. They're always talking about a bad one. I don't want to be in that group. I don't want my friends to think of me as being that way. You could also think money is very, very, very important, so important, too important, that it begins to be a kind of block, as opposed to being balanced and as opposed to being focused on what good work you're going to do with it. It's not money you're going to be putting under your pillow. Key here is that that beliefs can be reprogrammed, and we know that you've done that. You've reprogrammed some of your beliefs and got over them. Money, turns out, there's, I think, several different approaches. One is to sort of get it to disappear, take it on. Oh, you know what? Identify. When you get a miss, for example, you might ask yourself, what's going on there? Maybe money came up and this phrase came up, and then you could look at it and say, you know what? I just really don't believe that anymore, and really get into not believing it. And you essentially make it disappear. Any attachment it has, any entanglement energy it has in your system could disappear. The other approach is to integrate it. Say, yep, I have that, but it's not a very important. It's a minimally important part of what I'm about to do with my ARV, for example, and I'm trying to make it no longer relevant. But you have to wait until you see that as being an issue, and feedback time is the best time to do this. Now, here's a rather specific example I'm going to give you now, which again comes from Scientific American, an issue on the expert mind. And this APPI that I mentioned earlier, actually creating one. Here's the connection between the two. First of all, I think many of us have heard and could get into ARV being called a mental martial art. And I think you can believe that that kind of expertise is really no different than expertise in sports, music, or chess, which are the kind of people that were studied in this article, those kind of experts. Now, we all have our subcells or subpersonalities within us. I believe there really is value in creating and consciously improving the I-Psi self, that's subpersonality. Now, here's how I believe it should be done. The expertise creation process. So how do you become an expert? And you may not get the Carnegie Hall. You may not want to get the Carnegie Hall, but you want to become more and more expert at ARV. It's a combination of intention, emotions and feelings, thoughts, beliefs, expectations, attention, and actions in a harmonious, effortful fashion. Now, I think most of these words and ideas make sense to you, but this word effortful was a key thing that was defined in this article, and that's what I want to read to you now. The meaning is taken from this article. What matters, and this is a quote, is not experience per se, but effortful study, which entails continually tackling challenges that lie just beyond one's competence. Isn't that wonderful? Effortful study entails continually tackling challenges that lie just beyond one's competence. Even the novice engages in effortful study at first, he's got nowhere to go in terms of having confidence. And I think this is one of the reasons we get this what's called beginner's luck often. Okay, so novices do that. But in contrast, experts in training keep the lid of their mind's box open all the time. Thus, motivation appears to be a more important factor than innate ability in the development of expertise. So the motivation to effortfully study, to continually tackle challenges that lie just beyond one's competence. So if you're at 60% now and you're leveling off at 60, if you're happy there, fine. But if you want to get up to 70%, 75%, it's this effortful study idea where you use your intention, expectations, attention, emotions, feelings to move you forward and to increase your expertise. This is extraordinarily important in my opinion, and this is the basic approach. And when I say you, remember you are very deep, and I want to, you are part of the universe of collective consciousness. There you are. Here, another representation of you, touching it through the fuzzy boundary. But guess what? Inside you really is the UCC with the fuzzy boundary. Consciousness is fundamental. We don't understand it completely. We've got a sense of it, and it has a fuzzy boundary, and that's in you. Skip Atwater, who initiated and headed the RV Army unit for many, many years, and then went to the Monroe Institute, just a great person. And I've done workshops with him at TNI. He made the following statement. Some say that we pass from spirit into the physical at birth, and conversely pass from the physical world into the spirit at death. I say that we never pass from spirit. We are always in here, and when our physical self dies, we're still in here. I think that's sort of the definition of spirit, definition of soul. This comes from his book. I really should have the title of the book here. But it's something like The Master of My Self and something of the Soul. It's a very good book. If you go to put in his name in Amazon, you can find it. Most of the guys who worked in the remote viewing world have written books of one sort or another. This is a very good one. Okay, so that's all I want to say about this. So how do you quantum computers feel about this? If you're willing to accept your quantum computer, self-programmable one? Go ahead, give me an answer. Live it up. Okay, thank you, Brent. Kristen, I see your comment. If you stay, you'll still learn a lot about ARV. And this is recorded. Anybody else feel like they're a quantum computer? And that's
hey, Marty.
Okay. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Lila.
Yeah. As far as being programmed and programmable and things like that, if we say that we are not programming ourselves, then we are not taking responsibility for our thoughts and our actions. So yes, we are completely programming ourselves.
Beautiful. Thank you. And I believe that starts in utero. Whatever it is that you are there, how you're reacting there your self-programming. And the consciousness at that level is somewhat different, of course, but at what level you have your self-awareness and consciousness is involved. Anybody else? Okay. Let's go on. Feedback. So it all begins with feedback in this precog world where we live in. And let me, before we actually get in and we'll be doing it, I just want to, and again, this emphasizes for the newbies how it all starts in linear time. This is the tasking email, which was sent out to, in this case, the webinar workshop members, actually usually as we talk now, but some of them get it earlier. And it has when the transcripts are due, and it was due June 5th, has the event, which was due July 2nd. And then here's this link. And all you have to do is click on that link, and it'll ask for your email address, and then you will get your personal coordinate, which I showed you earlier. And we're going to do that a little later when you do your prediction. And after all that is done, you get a group prediction. After the group manager takes all the individual predictions and makes a group prediction. And that's when, in that case from a month ago, it was a pass. I said here we almost went with the yes, I almost did, because there was a very good 5.5, but there was also a good transcript on the other side. And so I had one yes, one no, and one pass. Other people just didn't go all the way through. They were still learning. But nevertheless, I passed, and I have the opportunity to put in a comment. Here's what actually happened between the 5th and the 2nd. Now, this is price, and this is the S&P, SPY. The S&P 500 numbers are 10 times this. But here, oh, look at that. I've got my thing at the bottom, which is hiding that. I'm sorry. But right here is June 5th, and that was the price at the close on June 5th. Here was the price on July 2nd, just a few days ago, and it's clearly the price move is up. So that means the outcome is yes, and the price changes up. So the outcome was yes, which when the prediction was made, this is when the computer basically, remember I told you everything is done so randomly? The computer had chosen no, yes, and the second one was the yes, which means it was the second possible photo site, which we'll get to shortly. Now, so up was the right answer. Now, what do you do in terms of feedback? The computer, remember, had two possible targets. Now that it knows up was the right answer, the target associated with up is now linked right through this link, which you will get in your email. So it's that simple. The event is repeated. It tells you the winning side, and it's now going to give you your actual target, which was associated with yes. And here, all I'm doing is I'm clicking here just to show you exactly what you would get. You would get this, and you put in your email address. I don't want to put in mine because up will come a picture, and I think there's some people here who did it last time, and I want them to do their own feedback session. Some of you may have gotten in your email, but I will put it in the message box here. And if you click here, Okay. So those of you who did a session, you just have to click on what just went into the message box, and you can start your feedback, do your feedback sessions now. Okay. So if you did not do the RV session, I want to give you two examples, which I'll talk about with you now while the others are doing their own personal feedback. So here, and actually this, and I don't think you will mind, Lila, but this is Lila's, and I'm showing it because when you have feedback and the feedback target available to you, you will also have the judging, okay? So, and I use Lila here because she always sends me, and I appreciate it, Lila, the judged transcript, and which I'd like all of you to do later. A lot of people did not do that. But in this case, she had judged A as a 4 and B as a 2 based on 20 A's and 10 B's. Now, independent of all that, we're now in feedback, and I haven't really looked at this hard, so in some ways that's really good. I'll be doing the feedback session, and I'm just starting to use the pointer. So let's see my pen here. Okay, so I'm looking here, and this is the feedback. So I'm looking at the transcript, and what I see right away, why am I losing my mouse? Okay, hold on. Oh, that's because it's real small. There it is. Okay, notice blue. I would circle the things which I thought were really good and right. She marked fresh with a little b and red with a little b. I'm doing the feedback, and my style, the viewer is in charge. My style is during feedback to really go for the good stuff that we got. And certainly this is bright. God, there must be a better way of making it. You know what? That's not good. I'm going to go to the highlighter. I think I should be, yeah, I can see that better. Okay, so blue, bright, soft cloth, spongy, yeah, light, right? All of this is very light. I don't see much red, don't see much green. Round, very big. In fact, I would circle that just because that's a really good gestalt. Certainly lofty. Yeah, large. Oh, I did a great job. I'm imagining the viewer. Low lying. I like low lying. Now, see, here's where she and I would differ. I would have given low lying. I mean, there's a lot of low lying stuff underneath that. So in addition, I would give low lying, and she didn't. And people differ. We've had sessions where people will do the exact same transcript and do judging on the same transcript and target, and they differ by 1. You know, someone might give it a 3, a 4, 4.5. Those kind of differences are not that unusual. Curving, for sure. Movement, yeah, it probably is movement, but I don't see it, so I would leave that alone. Billowing, laughing, hushed. I don't know about the temperature. I think floating, that's a feeling, but there's water around. It would have been good to have water, but floating certainly fits with water. And down here, and maybe I should have looked here first, she does her ideograms first. The ideogram is, you know, when you decide to start, and in the original days, you'd have a monitor, you'd put your picture, you'd put your pen down on the paper, and they would then give you the chord. You have the chord in advance, and you cool down, and then you decide to start. And you start with a squiggle like this. It's called an ideogram. Some people think of it as a pictogram. But a lot of feeling and information in there, and the rest of this is like decoding that. This, I suspect, just because of the line, might have come later. Though if this line were part of it, that would be pretty good. I just don't know. But you see here, now, being an independent judge, I would say maybe, depending on how good, I know I couldn't draw a good representation of this, to get the outside and the inside. I would have trouble with that. Maybe this, again, at feedback time, was that, The next step is to do, and like on a new sheet of paper, what you wish you had done. For example, a straight circle. For example, water. I marked already the good stuff, and you might put that on again to put together one transcript that's just right. How about structures? You might write structures, man-made structures. You see what I'm getting at? You really work this picture, telling your sub, hey, thank you, sub, for everything that you gave me. And hey, you could have done more, and next time, perhaps you will. And I'm doing everything I know how to increase the entanglement between the UCC and my conscious mind through you, the subconscious mind. I want to make my subconscious mind greater. I want to be able to use more entanglement energy to get all of these ideas, the ideas of a man-made structure, to come into my consciousness when that's the feedback target. That's the whole idea of doing a feedback session. So you work it with your transcript. I always suggest a new sheet of paper. You can start it at the top with your name again, put FB on it for feedback. And when you end the new sheet of paper, you write EOS, end of session, or end. It is another session. And when it's over, it's over. Part of the time, be quiet and see what your sub gives you. You might ask, was there a reason you didn't give me structures this time? Are you trying to give me a message? Because I know you can do it. You've done it in the past where you give me 5s and 6s. So what's going on? So that's one example. Here's another one. And this is actually Anita. Anita, you're here? Yeah, Anita is here. Well, let me do this one, Anita. Sometimes I let the other person, but I'm trying to teach them from this perspective of looking at it like anew. I look at this, and first thing I happen to do is to look at this and clearly connect it with the hurricane here. Motion outward, certainly. Boy, that's the main thing she's got here, is this outward motion. Nice to see. I mean, look how good that is. And yet, sub, thank you. Let me just see if there's any signs of twirling. And I'm just getting the sense now of this turning and sharing that sense with my subconscious, so it'll give it back to me if there's ever twirling in a future one. So I'm right now doing twirling. What colors do I see? I see enough yellow. I certainly see green. I don't see any pink. Flowing is big. Light. Non-solid, sure. I don't know what that is. poppy, papy, knobby, cold, loud, bang, like explosion. Now that's interesting. Again, this would be where metaphorical. We know these hurricanes, when you're anywhere near them, really are loud. So like an explosion, I'd give a lot of credit to that. Winding, not man-made. Looking down, oh wow, look at this one. Looking down from above. That's a really good one. And move to ground level. And again, she's getting the concept of a expanding, moving hurricane. Now, what can she do on a new sheet of paper? Repeat some of this stuff. And maybe, it's amazing how just a small little sketch, of a globe and, oh, you know what? I'm sensing a little circle over here. Notice if a sketch like that had been on the transcript, it would have raised it however high it went, to a higher score because the sketch is good. And let's see if I see anything else that could be added. I don't know. She said water. Oh, yep. Look at that. That says water point. Huh. Okay. So certainly over here you would put water. You could put land. You might just add a few things. High up, she got the fact that it's looking down, but you don't know how far. So there are other words that you could put, letting your sub know there are lots of ways of describing these kind of pictures, and these are additional ways that you might use in the future. Plus, you're telling your sub, I am going to be doing this in the future, giving you future information concerning your remote viewing sessions. So you're setting up a style, a protocol, which you'll be able to use, and your subconscious will know that you're going to use in the future, that it'll be routine. So it knows where to look for information. So associative remote viewing, feedback really is for learning and, of course, for doing the transfer of information using entanglement energy, which is entanglement intention, attention, and expectation.
Excuse me, Marty?
Uh-huh.
I have a question about my session that you had up. Was
Good.
that a hit? I thought that was a miss.
It was.
I thought so. Okay.
Yeah.
But now I see that I just did not score. I just did not judge myself correctly. I could have had a hit.
You want, please explain that, because that's one of the main messages. People always do this, and that's where the learning comes from. So why don't you go through that? I think that'd be really good. Go through what you mean.
My first ideogram is that squiggly one on the far left that kind of goes up.
Yep.
And that certainly is that circle, because I was confused about it. I didn't know what it was, but I knew it was something that went up high.
Ah, okay.
Okay. And then that big curve is also part of the circle. I just felt something big and curving. Those little dots down at the bottom, those are probably the windows in that structure that's being built.
Oh, and you could have marked it that way.
I could have marked it that, sure.
You didn't, right. But this one, I'm really surprised you didn't mark that one.
I know. Well, and then if you look at my dynamics and my dimensions, the first few words, the colors, they all point to B.
Yep. I
just missed. I get discouraged when I immediately see them. I go, oh God, I didn't see either one of those. and that's just not true. It's just not true. I did see something. So maybe I would do better with an outside judge. Okay.
Well, no, you could learn to judge, and maybe you would, but I don't think so. Outside judges have to learn the same thing, and guess what? Okay. Outside judges do feedback as well, and they say, if you pardon the expression, oh shit, look what I missed, and how could I have missed that? But it isn't only missing. Sometimes, like when you did A first, you became so convinced that A was it, you didn't look at as hard at the B connections.
Yes.
People do that. I've done that.
Yes.
And you cannot do that.
Yep.
You have to assume each one could be it. And there are other flaws and that judges do. And by doing it over and over, feedback is for learning.
Okay.
And under this is practice, practice, practice.
So, thank you.
And most of us believe that self-judging is just fine. And in some ways, it's a better way of learning how your sub works. But others think that independent is fine because they too often do both photos. However, let me assure you, there are a lot of people out there that do both photos even when they're independently judging. Okay, any questions or comments? And thank you for that, Lila. That was really important because feedback, no matter how long you've been in this business, you're still going to have oh shits. But then you're refining yourself, you're pushing yourself a little bit, and you're going to get better and better at judging. You can get better at remote viewing, judging, and feedback. Like water painting, colors flow. Okay, very nice. Anita, yeah, okay, I get that. Okay. No more questions on the feedback. In which case, and we're actually pretty much on our schedule, let's do a new prediction. And now we'll bring all this together. But remember, the prediction, we just did feedback for a month ago. Now we're going to do a prediction for a month from now. And this is the tasking which I sent to the webinar workshop members. I think I just sent it this morning, the 10th. And I thought a little actually long and hard about doing this one because I've done a lot of these. And I was worried about them getting boring. And then I want to tell you what I came up with that. I said, you know what? This will give me an opportunity to let people know that boredom is an issue in ARV. You could get so you really, and I think it hits the subconscious mind before it hits the conscious mind. And I think sometimes the subconscious mind gets bored and might be giving you the wrong one. And you might think about that when you get a miss. And I believe now, especially if you get 2 misses in a row, there's something going on. Because after a while, you get good enough where, you know, and I'm really assuming that people want to get up to the 75% level. You don't get 2 misses in a row very often if you're at the 75% level. And I think you might want to take a break. It might be boredom. It might be something else. Take a break, refresh yourself, and come back a little bit like a newbie. Okay, so here's the tasking. Will the SPY move up between the close today and a month from now? This is the Tuesday before my next Wednesday free webinar. So that's how I chose those dates. So this is, you know, roughly a month. And next month, we'll get the feedback on this. Okay, now here is the link. Let me get rid of this pointer. Options. Erase all. Okay, so at the bottom here is the link associated with this. And notice it does have the event date. These other numbers are really for the computer to keep everything unique. That and your email address is what ties all of this together for you. That's these last digits here, the 988919, just if you wonder. But what I want to do now, if it'll let me, I should be able to click on that. I did before. If not, I'll copy. Maybe that's because this is on and I didn't turn it off. Erase all ink. Okay, but I haven't turned it off. I just erased it. Let's see. I'm sorry for this bit of a delay. Pointer options, laser pen, highlighter, ink color eraser, arrow options hidden. Okay, now let's see if my regular cursor Gee, it looks like I turned off my regular cursor. How did I do that? Wow, I am having, now just so you know, I can't find my cursor. So there it's showing, and as soon as I come down here, it is turned invisible. So it must have something to do with this arrow thing. Wow. Huh. Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm glad I was a little ahead of schedule, but what do I do for this? My microphone. I am like hung up here. Completely hung up. Okay, good. I got out of that. Let me go here, and I'm going to copy this into the chat box as I did before. And so all of you can get your own coordinate, if I can get in there. Here we go. Okay. So there's the cursor. Wow, that really did something. Okay. Now I need to find. Now my chat box disappeared. Okay, so there's my chat box. That's everyone. Okay, that was easy. So you now should be able to click. In fact, I'm going to click on it, right? Everybody is seeing what I just put in there. And I just clicked on it. And this is what comes up. And so if I put in, and each of you should put in your own email address. Twice. Notice it's already defaulted to Webinar Workshop. And then click here to receive your coordinate or target reference number. And there it is. So mine, I'm not going to do a session, but I'll write it down anyway. So I have, mine is 7898009. Okay. So you now have your coordinate. And as I indicated earlier, the next thing you do now that you have a coordinate, there's nothing to do but to do your remote viewing session. But save this, because after you do your remote viewing session, you're going to come back to this very page, the one you have right now, and you're going to upload your transcript, which you bring to your computer. Some people are now doing everything on their smartphone. They take a picture of the transcript and they can upload it from their smartphone. But however you do it, you need to upload it to our computer, and then you click submit. But right now, the next step is the remote viewing session. And let's go back. Okay, so do you all have your personal computer, your personal coordinate? Remember, each coordinate is personal to you. Your target will be personal to you. So that's the page we went to. This is the page that we'll be coming back to. So we're now doing a remote viewing session. Now, for your newbies, your OBs, you're welcome to start. For your newbies, write your coordinate, your personal coordinate, and your name and date and time. That is just so standard in the remote viewing ARV world. And then a line. What this is basically saying is, this is the preliminary stuff. This is not part of my real transcript. Your real transcript is going to start after you do what we call a cool down, where you get rid of the day-to-day stuff. And I'll start you with that, but people end off doing it their own way. This is a sheet, which if you ask me, I'll be happy to send you, which is an indicator of what you might do. It starts with this coordinate ideogram idea that we talked about, and you might put it here. You know, people have other approaches. They've taken classes, so not everybody does it. But for a newbie, the idea of just putting a squiggle here and getting the feeling for it, getting things started is good. Your subconscious will start giving you things. It might give you gestalts. You might get images which you can put down. You might see that your mind got in it because it said red, round, and you went to basketball. But it was your mind. You'd put basketball over here, which declares it as an analytical overlay and trash. And by writing it down, you get rid of it so you can be open to getting more information. And this is sort of the list of everything that your nervous system can give you from your subconscious. And you want the feeling from your subconscious: textures, colors, smells, tastes, dimensions, big, small, round, square, sounds, dynamics, emotions are in there as well. Now, we're about to go into cool down, and already ARVers and remote viewers would be setting their intention to get a good match to the feedback target. They're going to be paying attention to what comes into their conscious mind and the sense of, is it coming from the subconscious or is it more analytical like? And they're feeling confident. They're expecting to get a good match because they're expecting to get information from their future feedback. And this was a major conclusion of Joe McMonagle and Ed May. Joe is probably the best public remote viewer out there, and Ed May was the scientist that took over from Hal Puthoff and is still working on this stuff today. What is clear, at least to those of us on our long-established team, is that intention, attention, and expectation play a very important role in the success of application and research of remote viewing. Okay, so this is the cue to which your intention, attention, and expectation get applied. There's the cue again with your coordinate, and cool down is very important. And that makes so much sense because it's during the cool down that you're getting rid of extraneous stuff. You're letting noise leave you. I'll give you a little guidance in that, but ultimately it's you. You have to do it. I don't know if my HemiSync is working. You might just work in quiet now. Different people like different kinds of music and sounds. I'm going to give you 10 minutes, and roughly half of it should be used for cool down to get into that place where you feel you've connected up with the feedback. Your expectation is truly that your subconscious is now ready to give you information from the feedback target that you're going to see next month. Time doesn't matter. It does that all the time. We have so many examples of that. Okay, I'll try to come in at 2 minutes, tell you to turn inward, and really set your expectation and witness what your sub provides. So for your newbies, your old bees are probably doing this already. You might loosen up a little bit, get settled in your chair, and start taking some deep breaths. And focus on just those breaths. And if any thoughts come in, just let them dissipate out your body. Let them just leave you, leave your consciousness. Focus on your breathing. Just relax. With each breath, feel your communication channel with the UCC opening. That channel is going to provide information about your feedback target for your coordinate. Okay, I'm going to start the 10 minutes now. Relax. You're about 2 minutes. 1 minute to go. You might go down and get another element or two. Very good. Come on back to your normal waking state. Might stretch a little bit. I hope that felt good. Great to get down and get more in touch with your subconscious and the UCC and your higher self and all that good stuff. So, you now have in front of you, and at the end of your transcript, and congratulations, especially to the newbies who might be doing it for the first time, write either the word end or EOS. I've noticed more and more people seem to be doing that. EOS stands for end of session. And that completes it with a fuzzy boundary. But that is your remote viewing session. So you have that in front of you. What's the next step? The analysis. And ultimately the judging in terms of choosing the CR that you want, confidence ranking that you want to associate with. So we've asked a yes/no question, and there are two possible targets. At this point, I gave you this joke before, but want to remind you that as you do your judging, you recognize that the subconscious uses analogies, uses metaphors, will come close. It's coming from the UCC up through your nervous system, up through, and up, of course, isn't exactly right, through your nervous system and through your history. I mean, you've got stuff, and that's part of what it uses to give you the conscious moment. So it's you two working together. Okay, I don't know how else to put it. Here's the ranking system. Just remember, a 3 is right on the edge. We consider a 3.5 to just be the minimum for wagerable. 4 5s are good. Don't take anything away from them. It's just the 6 and 7s happen to have the analytical information. But you can get excellent sessions. A 5 is an excellent session, so is a 4. Okay, now how do you put your confidence rankings in, and how do you see the two possible choices? Well, go back now to this page, which each of you should have, and you need to upload your transcript to your computer, and then click the Browse button. Now, I don't know if I've said enough here. I can go to mine to try to make this clearer again for the newbies. Do I have it here? I have it here. Okay, so here was mine. So what you would do is choose File. Now, I didn't do a transcript, but I hope all of you know how to get a copy of your transcript onto your computer. You can take a picture, send it to your computer. You can scan it to computer. You know, this has become more and more common, but if any of you are having serious problems that don't know how to do it, let me know. And then what you do is find it, okay? And I have something I sometimes use, but I'm not going to use it now because I don't want you to see my pictures. A dummy transcript, which basically says I am a dummy transcript, but I use that just to show you. You need to put your real transcript there, and it can be a JPEG, a PNG, it can be a PDF file. And then when you click submit, as soon as you click submit, what you will see is your first possible target. So remember, there are two. And then under that will be the second one. And under that will be this page. Now you remember the A-B approach we used. So I'm assuming you're doing this, and if you know all this, you can just turn off my volume. But again, the newbies might learn from this. You go through each element that you got, and actually I recommend just doing the first picture first, and that would be the A, photo site A, and go through every element. Oop, that's not an A. Oh, that's not an A. That doesn't match. I don't know what the A target is, so this is just the B target, which you got to hit on here. So let's just do the B. Yep, there's dirt, but marginal. This is the big B. I think I talked about this one before. But you do that with every one of your elements for both the photo site A and the photo site B. So photo site A will be here, photo site B here. As I say, some people just like to go through the element and does it match there, does it match there. But just remember, using metaphors and analogies and being close, it could do it to both, but in somewhat different ways. The English language and communication is difficult enough in your native language. And now you're learning to communicate with your subconscious. And it has to use your background, things you know. Obviously, when we do this in foreign language, guess what? Foreign language comes up here. All that makes sense. It just demonstrates it's coming through your personality. So right now, I'm assuming each of you are marking your transcripts with little a, big A's, little b's, big B's. Some elements might in fact have nothing. Now, some people still use the Targ scale after they've done the A-B counting. Most of them will take a ratio to see how much above or below a half they are, where 3, maybe 3.5, something in there, they would consider a half. That's one approach. And then as that ratio gets higher, they will, do I really have something unambiguous? Also, is my number, substantially higher? Some people will even simply take that ratio, like here, the ratio of 24 to 34, and multiply that by 7. I don't really recommend that, but some people do that. But what they're ignoring, which is very important, and it comes in when you use the verbal Targ scale, is this idea, which I basically stole with his permission from Joe, which is to give 50% weight to first impression gestalts. And that weight is between 0 and 1. In other words, did I capture the big picture? Something that when you first look at the picture, your very first impression, it just smacks you in the face. It'll get you in the ballpark of later stuff, which will come in about the target. And they can be more than one. We saw examples of water and white, for example, mountains, just a big picture thing that you would see all at once. And Joe and most other remote viewers, and I certainly put myself in that category, agree that the subconscious seems to want to give that first, but not always. There's never always in this business for whatever reason. The UCC and the way it comes up, all of that, though, that's in charge, if you will. It like has a system and a mind of its own, but it does want to integrate it with you. And that's what you do when you keep pushing your limits. But once you say that you give 50% of the weight to the first impression gestalts, then you can come up with the following formula. The first impression gestalts, and you do this for the photosite A, and you do this for photosite B. The first impression gestalt for A is between 0 and 1. You take the number match of A divided by the total, like we looked before, 24 divided by 34 would be the last example we looked at. You add those two together, so this is between 0 and 1, this is between 0 and 1, and you multiply that by 3.5, and you get a confidence ranking for A. And then for B, you do the same thing. So that's a numerical way of coming up with a confidence ranking for A or B. And the example that we did here, the 24 by 34 is actually 0.7. Remember, all I'm looking at here is photosite B. You need to do it for both. But that was a 0.7. I did this, and I judged the first impression gestalts here to actually be a 1. Somebody else might say it was a 0.8 or something like that, but she clearly captured outdoors, sky, mountains. There was the water here someplace. I don't know what you could get as more for a first impression gestalt. I think she even got green, and I'm not going to get so hard up that you had to say grass. I would say she nailed the first impression gestalt. So I gave it a 1. So using the formula, it's 1 plus the 0.7. First impression gestalt was 1. The 0.7 was the ratio for B. Multiply that by 3.5, and this came out with the 5.95. She gave herself a 5. That's, as I say, differences of 1 are not atypical. So, it's like, who's right? That is not the question. The question is coming up with something which is reasonable and expresses the fact that this was really a good session. Okay, and that's what's so important to recognize. What you are telling the group manager, the analyst, the person who might be making an investment, that in your judgment, this is where you are. You know, a 5, 5.8, whatever, we're up here, well above the marginal one. Okay, now, some of you, I hope, and I can now check, and that's what I will do separately, after you've uploaded your transcript and put in your CRs, right? So let me go back here. You download this, and the choices from 0 to 7 for A, choices of 0 to 7 for B. You put that in, put in some comments. The analyst, investor might like to hear your comment. Oh, this one felt really good. You know, whatever was going on in your mind. I really especially liked the match with such and such. Hey, I feel really good about having a fig of 1. Whatever you put in here, you get to put it in there, and then you click submit, and then that goes to the server, which I have access to as a general manager, or as the group manager. And the way I get access is through this special little program, which includes group predictions. Winning Entanglements is the name of this program we're using. Notice I'm clicking Webinar Workshop because that's what we're doing here. Here's a list of all the ones that have been done recently, because sometimes I do like to go back to them. But notice this is the one between 7:10 and 8:06, which is the one we're doing, and it's at the top because it's the most recent. I now click on it, and now I get the information. So I already have 3 people who have started. Notice this, but 2 of them have actually put in their CRs, and one person has gotten their, let me see, so I've got Anita, and okay, so Fire Soul Rider, who is Lila, has got her coordinates. She just hasn't finished judging, and that's what I'm hoping the rest of you are doing too, finishing your judging, and then you click submit, and I will be able to see them as they come in here, and I see the 2 coordinates. This is the 2 confidence rankings. Like here's a 3.5, and then there's a 4. This number here is the highest of the 2, and that then leads to the fact that this is a prediction. Please don't pay any attention. I'm not even going to say it out loud. You judge yours, each one of the photo sites totally independently against your transcript. You don't worry or be at least bit concerned what anybody else does. In fact, one of the things which happens more often than I certainly understand is that one person will go with a yes or a no, 3 people will go the other way, and the one person will be correct. Always trust yourself. We just finished a conference workshop in Las Vegas, and there was a lot of wagering which went on with sports wagering. And I told that you always go with yourself, not the group. I will always make a group prediction because ultimately I think we're going to learn how to do this better and better. And the group prediction percentages are going to get higher and higher, even with brand new viewers like you. With the very best viewers, it's already gets better and better. But, you know, we're now using newbies mixed in with oldies, if you will. Okay, so let me just refresh this. Okay, I'm not getting, whoa, yeah?
I have a question. Do I have to turn it in today? I was going to ask Mike to judge it for me.
No, because you know how to get your own feedback session, so that's absolutely fine.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. You know, it'll be one less for my group prediction, but the group prediction is actually the least important in terms of the education that's going on here. Okay, so are others of you getting hung up someplace, or are you doing okay? Please put something in the chat box or talk to me. Okay, so I'm just assuming you're in the middle of it, and that's perfectly fine. Now, if some of you decided not to do it or something like that, let me know so I'll know when to move on. Okay, Ellen, thank you for sharing that. I hope you do feel comfortable in knowing what to do in principle when you're able to in other circumstances. Okay, let me do one more refresh. Okay, so I still only have 2 that are all the way done. And one of the other things I am able to do, okay, very good. Besh is the pass, Firestone, and then Anita is here. Okay, since Anita is not a pass, and it's always fun to look at the ones that, you know, get more hits, though if we have time, I can also look at Besh's and we can see if we agree with the way he judged it. But let's look at Anita's. So I can get her transcript. Okay. I don't think I can rotate it here. Or is that a rotation? Let me see. Sometimes I can rotate it here. Okay, so I need to use my Snagit. First, I've got to get rid of this. Okay, so let me copy this. Boy, I got lots of stuff Where's my snag? There it is. And I will open the editor. And now I can rotate. Rotate, looks like clockwise. Okay, and now let's put that over there so I can get it again. And now I can also get the two photos from here. So there's Anita. So this is going to be her photo site A. And I really do want to do this because I think it's valuable for you. It's just logistically in real time. It's not as easy as I would like, but I happen to have another snipping tool. And I will put that there. So that's now saved. So that's A. And now let me go back. You see, all this was done. There's none of this that I can do before because it's all randomly chosen by the computer. But now I can get B. Okay, so that's B. I really want to put that. So, whoops. Okay, so that's B. Let me move that over here. Here's my A. So there's A, there's B, and there's the transcript, which I should be able to make bigger. Ooh. Well, yeah, okay, good. Well, that was easy, right? Okay, Anita, why don't you come up and explain, your logic for giving the CRs that you did.
Okay. Oops, yes. Okay, my advanced visual I got was like things stuck together, almost like layers, reminding me of B. That is at the advanced visual. Let me just see at the top right. My ideogram, I got a wavy motion and the color red.
Yes.
Dominating.
Yes.
Almost like shaking out a cloth, that rippling, waving effect. Now the water in A looks relatively quiet to me, so I'd rather say it is the pattern in B.
Right.
I also got the pattern just below the ideogram. Wavy pattern in motion is also more like B. The idea of layered next to that, although I did draw a square. Colors red, purple, I won't say it's purple, but purple, blue, orange, brown, it's all B. I didn't get shiny or white really, so I doubt it's A. Texture, I got like a woven crisscross pattern. But that doesn't really fit in anywhere.
Right.
Smell, I don't know the smell. It's just a lingering smell. Taste was dry. No idea what a planet tastes like. Temperature is hot. No clue about the planet either.
Yeah, right. Jupiter, right. But you got, okay,
Sound,
so, okay, I'm sorry, keep going. You're going over all your A's and B's. That's good.
yeah, sound, I got the shape of a tortoise now. I've got slight synesthesia. So sometimes I get shapes when I ask for a sound or something like that. I got a wooing sound. Now that could be both. Shape I got as a round and layered. I feel. I got both sun and first darkness and then sun.
Yeah, that was
Work like no idea. Inside is more A. Winter can be either. Then at the bottom, I got like people making circular motions.
right.
Now
You
that
got
could,
water. You got water here. That water, yeah. So that was A.
no, that is winter.
Ah,
Winter.
okay. In winter.
But the circular motions could be either, because it could be either people rowing because the boat sank, or it could be the planet turning in circles.
Well, now you see
And
that's. Let me just comment on that for show you how judging is different. I see the circles, but the fact it's associated with people
is
make
I.
think it's A, not B. But again, you're the judge, and especially when you drew it, if you got the sense that this was sort of one gestalt, a mini gestalt with the circles being connected, then it would be A. If the circles came in sort of separately, then I could see why it would be B as well. Like here, clearly, you probably did a B for this one. Did you? I mean, this one was a B. Anyway, judges do things differently, and that's just reality. Okay. So when you got done, how many A's? Did you use the Joe technique with the figs, or how did you?
I just did the Targ scale and used Joe McMonagle's first gestalt.
Oh, okay.
So one, because the rippling there at the top is more like A and the one at the bottom right is more like B, so it's almost 50-50. But because the overall gestalt, the overall image was a monotone red, more or less, I would say it's more like B.
So you gave a higher fig to B?
Yes.
Okay. What did you give it, by the way, just of interest?
A 4.
A 0.4?
A 4.
I'm sorry, I just don't understand.
B got a 4 and A got a 3.5.
Oh, what was the fig? I'm sorry. What was the fig for B?
No, I didn't do figs. I just did
Okay. Okay.
scale.
I misinterpreted. Okay, very good. So you had a lot more elements for B, listening.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So there you got to hear one person going through sort of the logic, and I introduced some uncertainty in how another judge might do it, but you as a judge need to do just that. Okay, so let me get rid of this, rid of that, rid of that. And I think now, let me see if anybody else gave me anything. No. Okay, so these are the only two that are completed. Lila is giving hers in the future. It's like with only one, I feel very uncomfortable. I mean, how can you call that a group prediction? So I am going to just simply pass. And as I say, it's the individual things that matter anyway. That's why having Lila go ahead and do independent judging and all that, it's really for her benefit. Just like what you did here, Anita, you were able to do it here because you did self-judging, and so did Besh. It'll be for your benefit next month. I hope you both come back to do the feedback sessions. But then what I do is I passed, and this just gives me verification that it is now in the system as a pass. So, okay, now let's finish off. Are there any questions that have come up because of all of this? I don't see anything in the chat box. Okay, so we made our prediction. And a pass is a legitimate prediction. Nothing wrong with passes. You still learn from it. And that's what it's all about, just getting better and better.
Hey, Marty.
Yeah.
This is Ellen. I
Hi,
see
Ellen.
I see in the chat that Carl McClellan keeps saying he sent his through, but you're apparently not seeing what he's writing in the chat. He says, I sent mine, Martin, but was asking if it came through.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Oh, he sent it to me privately.
Oh, okay. I'll mute myself back out then.
No, that's okay. It should be there. So let me take another look. Maybe it just got there, because I can go back and pick it up from here. Make sure it's the webinar. And there it is. I have not gotten it. Okay, so thank you for pointing that out, Carl. When you clicked on sending it, you click the submit button. What happened next? What you should get is a page that says you have submitted it and you went either yes or no. Did you get anything like that? See, just sitting here and not receiving it. The only way I could not receive it is if you did not click a submit button. You know, you might have uploaded it, but then the next step is under that little, let's see, where do I have that most easily? Well, maybe it's in my presentation. I have to go way back though, but that's okay. Here. So this is the page you went to browse and put your transcript in, but then you have to click the submit button. And my best guess is that you did not do that. Now, did you do that? Because when you click that, another page comes up. And in some cases, it'll say error. For example, if you didn't do a transcript, JPEG or something like that, or it will give you more information.
Hello, Martin. Can you hear me okay?
Hi, Carl. I can hear you barely, but I can hear you. Go ahead.
Basically, what happened, Martin, I tried several times on the submit button, but it seemed to go to a separate page of various sort of numbers and figures.
Okay, wait. I'm sorry, Carl. I can't hear you. Can you raise your mic or speak closer to it or something?
Is that better, Martin?
A little better, yeah. Well, just tell me what happened. Did you click the submit button?
Yes, I did, several times.
And then what happened? When you click it,
It,
what happened?
it basically went to a separate page, and it didn't seem to have gone through correctly. So that's why I thought I'd best message you.
What was the separate page? Yeah, what did the separate page say?
Okay, just stand by 1 second, please.
Yeah.
Okay, basically it's coming up with table width 600 TRCD front page area size.
God, I wish I could see that. You have that on your screen? Let's do something. I'm practically done. I just have a few closing remarks, and I'm actually going to give you control and see your screen. Are you okay with that?
Yes, I'm not sure how I'm going to do it. Could you guide me through this?
Yeah, you don't have to do much. Let me just share. I can share with you. I'm going to. Okay, I'm going to stop my share for a moment. Okay. And now I want to do you as a new share. I think I might have to make you a co-host. Yes. Okay, now on the bottom of your screen, you should see something green which says share. You have to go, this is a bit unusual, everybody, but you know, this is an educational class. In Zoom, on the bottom, there should be a green folder that says share.
Yes, there is.
Click that.
Okay, that's it.
And then you will have options and share my main computer. Sometimes if you have two screens like I do, you want the first screen. Click that, and then everybody will see whatever's on your screen.
Okay, right. Thank you. Just give me 1 moment, please. Basically, I'm going to click on it now. I rushed in from work, so it was just a quick stretch. I had 6 minutes to do this. So I'm sorry I've not been able to write everything down like the other lady.
Okay, there you go. You're coming up.
Can you see that?
Yeah, it's just starting to come up now. You probably see it, and we're seeing it a few seconds later. There it is. Okay, so that's your transcript.
Yeah, I apologize. I usually do more complete ones. But,
No. That's a great transcript, but we're at the stage where you have to upload it to our server. That's what you didn't do.
Okay.
How do you, now you've got this on your computer already. You know where it is, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Do stop. Okay, go back to the page where you got your coordinate. You know, the page which had the submit on it.
Okay.
This is good for the newbies because we're actually going to see you do it now. Go back. You know the page I mean? It's a web page.
Okay. I got where the one with the coordinates I received.
Yes. Go back to that page and put it on your main screen so we'll all see it.
Okay, it's on.
We're not quite seeing it yet. No, that's a great transcript. You know, if it turns out to be that. Go ahead to your main page. You know what I mean by that? That was the page I showed where you got your transcript and then it said submit at the bottom. That's where you're hung up. That's why I don't have it yet.
Yes, that's the one I'm on now.
No, but we don't see it. So it's not on your main screen or we would be seeing it.
Just a moment. What are you actually seeing at the moment, Martin?
We're still seeing your transcript.
Ah, right, okay. Beg your pardon. Is that better?
Not yet. There it is. Okay. Nope, we had it. Okay.
Right, I've just shared, Martin.
There it is. Perfect. Perfect. Now, you click choose file and find that file that you were just showing us. Yes, that's the step where you got hung up. And as I say, this is perfect for the newbies because that happens a lot.
Okay.
That's it. Now click submit and we will see your two choices. Well, we'll see the first one first. Ooh, I don't like that.
Yes, that's what I've been getting.
Oh, that's where you got hung up. Okay, go back. What is Carl? What is the file type? Oh, it says it's a JPEG. It says it's a JPEG. I know when you clicked on it, it just said Carl, but this is carl.jpg.
Yeah, it's a JPEG file. I just named it Carl quickly.
Okay, click it again and let me look at it. Okay, wait, hold on. Yep, it's a JPEG file. Okay, you have to click it again. And now do submit again. Okay, I do not understand that, but let's try one more thing and then we'll just stop and you and I will do this together alone. Do a refresh on this page. Okay, and now go through the Carl again. Huh. Okay. You sound like you're overseas, though the JPEG format should be the same. Okay, I do not understand that. And when this happens, people are supposed to contact me, and I will eventually figure it out. Will you email me? Will you email me your carl.jpg file?
Yes, absolutely.
And then I'll have your email address, and I will get back to you. I'll figure this out. I mean, you know, first time this has happened, but other people may get affected by it, so I need to understand it.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Will do.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, now do one other thing. On the bottom, oh, maybe I can do it. I think I can do it. I can do a share. Yeah, that'll stop this will stop your share, and then I'll start my share. Okay, sorry about that. But let's move forward.
Marty?
And I will take care of that. Yeah?
I had Mike look at my transcript and we came up with the same answer. So I went ahead and photographed it and I emailed it to you.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, with the A's and B's and everything?
Yeah, with the A's and B's. It's an interesting one.
Okay.
If you'd like to look at it.
Sure, let's do it. We're just having an informal thing here. People can come and go. Here's an inbox. Okay, so here are the predictions. There are comments.
I sent it to PIA Inc. Yeah, or .com.
Yeah, my normal one.
Yeah. Yes. I just sent it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did you refresh?
All folders are up to date. I shouldn't have to refresh my inbox.
Oh, it just comes in.
250, right?
Huh.
Yeah. What?
That's weird.
We have gremlins here.
Well, I'll tell you what, my computer went to sleep and just shut everything down when I wanted to send this to you. So I don't know what's going on.
It might happen at your end or mine. Let me do a search.
Okay.
No, this is, no, see, the last I have from you is Monday.
Okay, Monday. Interesting.
Yeah.
And it's in my sent box, and I'm forwarding it to you now.
Okay.
Okay, there it goes. I just heard it. And maybe my computer went to sleep before it was sent. I don't know.
There's our pass. I thought I saw your name.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is all acting very strange.
Well, actually, I got more presets for the photo site that I did not choose, which is very interesting for me. So
Okay,
that's
I just may be doing too many things at once. Wait,
okay.
let me try. Wait, hold on. I've got another computer here just to see if it went to that one. And but I got prediction and line. No. So I've got two things to figure out. I think I need to reboot my computer. That won't explain the other problem because that's on the server. That won't explain Carl's problem. Okay, but let me finish this off if I can.
Yes.
Knowing the way I'm having problems here, we'll see if I can in fact still have PowerPoint working. Okay, so we went through this, right? We did the judging. And now just sort of reminding you and looking at this as a precognitive telepathy is what you've been doing, including the past month, and you've just started the first part of this. But what you do in ARV is precognitive because you're getting information from the future that comes back to you. And it's telepathy because it's two different minds. Your mind is not the same, but it's very, I think, wonderful that you are exploring your own mind. You're not doing anything with anybody else's mind. And this idea of being totally responsible fits in just beautifully here. And this entanglement energy, which we talked about, which is at the most fundamental level of physical reality at the 0 point energy place and then beyond. It goes into this universe of collective consciousness, the matrix, key, chi, whatever you want to call it. That's where this entanglement energy comes from that allows you to do this. And I think strong, loving, this is entanglement, strong, loving entanglements will follow your clear intentions, attention, and expectations about applying your entanglement energy. That's why the cool down becomes important. And you want to know something? When you're away but thinking about this stuff, how you think about it is all entangled. The UCC gets involved with everything. And so keeping this attitude of being positive, keeping the attitude that you know that you're being effortful and pushing yourself from what you thought were your limits just a little bit further, because you can always do that. This is a case where you have good measures of that, but you know, you can always improve in one aspect or another of this. And then just keep precogging. You're learning about yourself, you're learning about your subconscious, and you certainly can, by effortfully, do reprogramming. a piece at a time. It's in the sense of being effortful. Just push it a little bit, make it a little bit better at a time. I think that's the way to go, because you already have the basics after you've done a few of these. And that's the entanglement energy is what connects all of this up. And the fun work, consciousness is fundamental, with fun being F-U-N, really is exploring your subconscious mind, your deep self, your higher self, whatever you want to call it, and psi in general. ARV is one example, but a pretty good representative example. And then ultimately, in spite of what I work very hard to do in terms of teaching, at the deep level we're talking about now, you really cannot teach a man anything. You can only help him find it within himself. And this is all very personal work, because the communication channel is through you, from the UCC, through your subconscious, and all that happens to you up to now, plus your future is involved as well. So it's really kind of fun, pretty amazing, pretty cutting edge, and I would think very exciting. And I wish for all of you and all of us to be healthy, wealthy, and wise. And wealthy includes wealthy in the deepest sense, since we all know we're all one, that the wealth that we learn both educationally and also with money, and what money can do, will be shared among all of us. So with that, I thank you for your attention and coming here. And if there are any final questions or comments, now's the time. Okay, yeah, we've had a very interactive session, which I really like, and so I think we indeed are done. Brent, I don't know what you would say a limit is. The remote viewers do one a day, some of them. I'll give you a specific example. Joe McMonagle liked to do 6 a week, and period. It's practice, practice, practice. He doesn't want to go stale. He knows that he's still learning, and he does one every day. Now, he's just recently retired, so I don't know about now, but when he was active, that's what he shared with all of us. Now, ARV, the sessions he's talking about, where you might be looking for a spy or looking for something where you really want the details, he might do 20, 30 pages. And that's the way when they teach controlled remote viewing, that's what they do. And he then would say one a day. ARV are much shorter. We're talking about an hour, hour and a half total with everything, if you're doing feedback from a previous one, whatever. And so somebody felt comfortable and they felt they weren't pushing it and they could live with it in their lifestyle without forcing it in any way and feeling really comfortable doing it, I would see no problem doing 2. I think 3 would be pushing it, but that's my opinion. How can I get feedback on the targets in the AR? Well, when you're in the app financial groups, you get feedback then. So you need to do the ARV. Now, if you're a full member, you will get on a list that will let you get their predictions. But I'm no longer a big supporter of that. I think you should do it yourself, learn how to do it better and better, learn to trust yourself, and do your investing that way. Wow, Carl, thank you. And then let's see, Niles, how can I get feedback on the targets? Okay, right, I just answered that one. And then Brent, great webinar. Thank you, Brent. And thank you all. As you probably picked up, I really love doing this. I mean, for me, this is as cutting edge as you can get. And I've always been a scientist, and being involved in this really cutting edge science enterprise, I think it's the beginning of a paradigm shift, is something I love to do. And I couldn't do it if you wouldn't come. So I'm glad you too are interested. So thank you very much. And with that, I will end this. And this will be recorded. So take care. Keep precogging.